Hello and welcome to the Hollywood Persona podcast. I am Ant. Mitch is off today. He had a death in the family, and so he is mourning and recovering. And so thankfully, I am joined here by Florence Bremer. Florence, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm
Thank you
sorry to
so
be
much.
here based on the circumstances, but I'm happy to fill in and be Mitch today.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you doing this. There's just so much big movies out that I wanted to cover. Mitch and I haven't posted in probably 2 weeks, and so I'm like dying to get this stuff out. Mitch, for everyone listening, Mitch is doing fine. I would say he and I have been talking pretty frequently, but as you can imagine, it's just a ton of just stuff that sucks to have to do when you lose a family member. So I'll leave it at that. He'll be back on and he can give more detail as he wants. It didn't seem like any of this was taboo or not to be mentioned, but I just want to give him the ability to explain the situation as much as he'd like to. So what we're going to do is just talk about a couple movies here that are big and in theaters at the moment right now: Wicked, Gladiator 2, and then a couple of older horror movies that you've seen. One called Lucky and the other I Am a Ghost. And we'll start off with Wicked. But before we do, we're recording this just a couple of days after the Thanksgiving holiday. So I wanted to just ask and see how yours went. What happened for your holiday? Did you have everyone at your house? I know you have several kids with kids.
Uh-huh, I do. I had about 17 people at my house, but not on Thanksgiving. We had to push it until Saturday because for the last about 3 weeks, and maybe this is a TMI, but there's been a pretty nasty stomach flu that went through my family, and I thought I was in the clear. And Tuesday night, I woke up, I was not in the clear.
Uh,
We canceled and pushed it off and had it Saturday, and it ended up being delightful.
did any of those 17 people travel from out of state? Like, was it a nightmare
No, no, no.
good?
All my family is very close, like within miles of my house. I
That's good.
I am from Illinois, and my whole family followed me out years ago. So my brother came out. He has 3 kids, and he has 3 grandkids, and I have 3 kids and 3 grandkids, and my parents are out here too. And so all of us together makes a giant group. And then I have a
Yeah.
sister-in-law who's out here. My brother's sister's out here, and my father-in-law. So we're a great big.
Awesome.
Oh, there was one travel snafu. My niece moved to California, my sister-in-law's daughter, and she lives in Palm Springs. And so she drove out for Thanksgiving. So I never got to see her because she left Saturday morning.
Got it.
And yeah, so that was the one, but she's coming back in a couple of weeks.
Cool, cool.
So
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad it ended up working out.
yeah.
I my Thanksgiving was pretty chill and relaxed. I have my mom here, and so she cooked with her boyfriend Dave, and a long-term family friend that I've known forever came over. I worked attending bar at the theater, and because this weekend was the biggest weekend of the year, the biggest day of the year, I was working crazy hours at the bar. Did quite well, as far as like money wise going, making tips. But I did get to enjoy the turkey and everything, so it was awesome. Do
Good. I'm
you?
glad.
Yeah, it was nice, and yeah, I didn't feel like left out or anything. I like being at the theater, whether I'm working or watching movies. I just enjoy being there. Do you have any? I know you have Halloween traditions. Do you have any? Does your family, your daughters, or any of the kids, do you guys watch any Thanksgiving movies? Because I don't really. Did y'all
No,
watch
not
anything?
no, we didn't watch anything. What we did do is, well, it was a little messed up because of being sick, but
Yeah,
I have this Christmas tree that I love that I bought last year, and it's basically a light show, and it changes all different colors.
cool.
It goes red to green to blue, and it does like rainbow tree. It's the most amazing tree I've ever seen. I love like anything that changes lights. So we plugged that in, and I don't even have any ornaments on it yet because I just wanted to see the lights. So we did that. That was a
That's
little
good.
addition to just get the tree up.
Yeah,
I can't think of like anything that we watch. We don't watch the parade because I think that the parade is kind of boring. We sort
yeah.
of, some people bring out a Christmas movie. I did put on for my middle grandson, looks exactly like Macaulay Culkin. And so I put on Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Yeah.
And I always tease him and I always say, remember when you got lost in New York? And he's 4 and he's like, yeah, I remember. So we watched
That's
a
funny.
lot.
Okay, all right, so that's good enough. Yeah, because it just hit me that like most holiday tradition movies is like Christmas movies, not really Thanksgiving. But I guess it kind of starts at Thanksgiving. Have you seen the movie Hot Frosty? Have you heard of
No,
it?
my sister-in-law saw it. She said it was
Okay.
terrible. So I stayed away.
Yeah, I've heard it's just awful, but in a like endearing way that you knew it was going in. It has Lacey Chabert, who she does all of those like Hallmark
Right
style.
stuff. Yeah.
Yes, rom coms. I have like an affection for her just because she was the voice, or she was the voice of Meg on Family Guy before Mila Kunis took over.
Yeah, she sure was, huh?
Yeah, so I'm always like when I see her name pop up, I'm like, oh, cool. I'm glad she's working. I'm not interested in any of the movies she's making, but I'm glad
She
she's
was one
working.
of the mean girls, and so I always loved her from that.
Right, yes, duh. And, speaking of Mean Girls, I would say that we could get into the review of Wicked. Both you and I saw it, and
Mm-hmm.
I would say that Ariana Grande very much reminded me of a Mean Girl character throughout this movie. Do you see where I'm coming from with that?
I do, but actually, I was delighted by her the entire time.
Same.
Yeah.
I just was like, oh, this feels like she's could be plucked out of Mean Girls and dropped in here. But I really was wowed by her more than I thought I would. So I guess I'll just quickly set it up. Everyone knows what Wicked is. It's the biggest movie of the year, or close to. Maybe Deadpool was bigger, Inside Out, but so Wicked is the movie by John Chu. I always mess his name up. He's given us In the Heights from last year or 2 years ago. Also Crazy Rich Asians, which was recent, which I enjoyed quite a bit. And it has Ariana Grande, of course, and Cynthia Erivo. And it's the prequel to, well, it's kind of, I don't know, I guess is it a prequel technically? So it's, of course, based on the stage play that is world famous and has been for 50 years or more, or
Maybe
maybe
about 30.
yeah, long, long time. Have you seen the stage play?
I did. A traveling troupe came to ASU and they will have Broadway shows. And I saw Wicked there about 10 years ago, maybe.
Wow, yeah. So now that I've seen the movie, I do want to see the play because I quite enjoyed this. I didn't think I would. I would say I was talked into going to see it. It wasn't on my most anticipated list. I guess I would have gotten to it with it being so big. But so, like I said, Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jonathan Bailey, Michelle Yeoh has a small role, Jeff Goldblum has a small role, and then Bowen Yang is also here. He's a good comedian, and he has a
Love him from
yeah, me too. Me too. Whenever he pops up, he's always fun. He's kind of like the male Aquafina, maybe.
That's a good analogy.
Like they play.
Is when he is the iceberg from the Titanic. Like, if anyone hasn't seen him be the iceberg from Titanic, like, well, listen to the rest of the show, but then afterwards, Google it because you will just totally crack up.
I'm gonna look it up. I haven't seen that. And then I noticed, speaking of the play, I noticed that about halfway through the movie, we kind of really focus on two characters, and I later found out that was Adina Menzel.
Huh? And Kristen,
And thank you.
that to me was a huge surprise. So I hope it's not spoiling anything for anybody because they are the original
Right.
um, from the Wicked stage show.
On Broadway, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I guess that could be technically considered a spoiler, but I don't care. I'm less spoiler averse than others, so
It's been a couple of weeks now that it's been out, or at least a week. So if anybody really wanted a surprise, they should have seen it by right now. But I didn't know that they were in that, and I was delighted to see them pop up.
so I didn't know they were in it. I didn't know really who they were. I only remember Adina Menzel from that famous John Travolta clip introducing her at the Oscar, mispronouncing her
When you
name.
said some crazy name.
Yes,
Well, she's
but
Elsa in Frozen.
that's right. That's right. But you can totally tell that she was someone the way the camera focuses on them for their number. I'm like, I nudged the person that I was watching this with. I'm like, they must be somebody, or else why would they focus so much on these characters? So it was a
Yeah.
nice thing to learn later.
I choked and I was so excited. I choked and like my daughter was cracking up. And I'm like, they're the original from the original Wicked stage play.
Yeah, it's kind of like they had to do that. Halloween H2O had Jamie Lee Curtis's mother in it from Psycho, right?
Hmm.
You also have, shit, I had another one that just happened recently who, this is a bad one, but Wonder Woman had
The
um,
Carter at the end.
Linda Carter at the end. So, like, it's fitting. It's fitting.
Yeah.
Tons and tons of more examples of that. But so the story of this is basically, for those that don't know, how could you not already know by now? So this was the busiest day of the year at the theater that I work at. So 4,500 people came through the doors on just Thursday alone, and then another
Oh.
another 4,400. And we have 14 screens, so we're not a 24 screen, but huge, 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 huge numbers over the 3 day, and it's broken all kinds of records, biggest 5 day. But the story is mainly Elphaba's story, which is the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. She's the green woman, and it's her going to a kind of, I guess, what's the name of it? They call it Skiz?
Shiz?
Shiz, which is kind of, it reminded me a little bit of like Harry Potter school for wizards kind of thing.
They did it first, so Wicked did it
Right,
first.
right, yeah, yep, definitely. And she's of course treated differently because of the color of her skin, which is of course a metaphor. At this school, we have talking animals, so it is kind of funny that a person's skin color is weird and different than a goat that teaches a class. But this is Fantasyland, and so it's basically kind of the Wicked Witch of the West and East's friendship, and maybe dissolving of that friendship, because of course we all know in the Wizard of Oz from 1939 that they are enemies, or they are opposed to each other, right? She's the bad guy. Elphaba is.
And
So
the first moment is really where it starts where Dorothy lands in Oz. So that's kind of the first moment of the movie. And then you go back for its
yeah,
origin story.
and so that's why I was having a little trouble saying, is this truly a prequel or not, right? Because we see the end of The Wizard of Oz, but then we see before it. So I guess it is a prequel, but we see we see the ending of The Wizard of Oz, right?
Remember for sure, but I don't think that scene exists in the play. I don't
Oh,
think they
interesting.
start with being in the Wizard of Oz, basically in the Wizard of Oz. I don't think
Okay.
that's how the play starts. Because with the play, like if you can picture it, it's one stage and a couple sets kind of come and go, but it's a very, very limited. And this movie was very expansive. Like you go everywhere in this movie.
And the money is on the screen. I would say what I was most impressed with was the sets, the cinematography, costumes, and choreography. And I know that sounds all like stuff that's what movie critics look out for, or stuffy and pretentious. But just an example, like the camera will pan. We're whirling through a musical number, and the camera will just go by a group of people for 2 seconds, or maybe even 1 second, and it's like fully dressed, real people, not CG. Of course, there is CGI in this movie, but people in costumes that look cool and creative, and they're all choreographed dancing to something, and then that's it. You never see that set or those people again. So I was just like, wow, they really put effort into making this look
They did.
amazing.
They did. And I would tell you, I kind of went to this movie like arms crossed with a grimace on my face because I wasn't planning on seeing this movie. Because there was something about the previews that made it look awful to me. And I guess that's good because they didn't give you all the surprises that there was. And
Yeah.
then in the last couple of days, I've just been hearing people raving about this movie. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to see it. Like it sounds like a proven property. I'm going to go and see it. And I was delighted. And you're totally right about the dance numbers because it's always sort of a pet peeve of mine is like when you see movies with extras and the extras are just kind of like faceless and they're not as I don't know talented or they look out of place.
Yeah.
I was totally into this world. They looked right on. Their costumes were amazing. They were all part of the school. There wasn't an extra where I was ever like,
Right. Yeah.
like I'll tell you the one director where I think he does horrible work with extras is Steven Spielberg. Like if you
Okay.
ever look at the extras in his movie, they're always like, I'm like, who are these people? Like they
Hmm.
don't even look like they're in the movie. It's so bizarre.
Funny. Yeah. I can't say that I usually notice them, but I will have to look out for that for him because, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so I was just so wowed by that. The songs, most if not all of them worked for me, and the movie was much funnier than I thought it was. I found myself laughing quite a bit.
Yeah.
Ariana Grande playing Mean Girl, like her ditziness and kind of being aloof about her privilege and the world around her, not being all focused to serve her, that led to lots of comedy. It was very funny. I would have to say my favorite song, which is I guess Defying Gravity at the end, was just excellent. It was all executed like terrifically, but the one where we get split screen. What did you say?
I was gonna say popular. Is that
No, I did like that as well. But no, the split screen where they talk about how they both loathe each other.
yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Really, really cool and creative. I like the split screen. Let's see. Did you have any negatives? Because I have maybe just a couple of small things. Was there anything that you didn't like or that
Really?
bothered you?
Probably my only complaint was the length. I would around the halfway point, I felt there was 20 minutes that was maybe a little bit filler. And if this would have been a 2 hour movie, it probably would have been a perfect movie instead of going for like the 2.5 hour. That was really my only complaint. I really, really enjoyed it. I walked out and I said, this is this year's Wonka because I enjoyed Wonka so much from last year.
I did too.
I kind of conflated the two.
Yep, yep. I also really enjoyed Wonka. I didn't think I would, but it ended up really working for me. And a complaint I have, and I share with lots of other people, I've heard this said elsewhere, is how very overexposed it looks. It's very like the saturation levels were cranked up, so that it was very bright. Like whites were, extremely white. That was a stylistic choice made by the director. Fine, that's what he wanted to do. To me, I wish it was maybe toned down a bit to look more like a typical movie, especially because the Wizard of Oz movie, right, is really low saturation where, because the color was such an important piece to that movie. Although, I guess, tell me if you know this. I think the original was in black and white and it was later added color. No?
No, no. The color was filmed in color in
Okay.
1939. That was like the big thing because it's the same year as Gone with the Wind, and Gone with the Wind was all color. And so what they did with the Wizard of Oz was when she's in Kansas, obviously, I'm just not telling anyone anything they don't know, but when she's in Kansas, it's black and white, and then Oz, you get the color, and it was filmed that way.
As she opens the door, yeah, I remember, and I know it was like Technicolor, and it was a big deal at the time. I just didn't realize that they had color all the way back to '39. I thought it came along a little bit
Yeah,
later. I did
yeah.
go back.
It was still a big deal if you had a film in color because for many years afterwards, like even into the 60s, you had a large amount of movies that were still black and white.
Right.
Because I mean, think about it. Like Psycho is in like 62, and
Yep.
Misfits
Yeah.
is like in 60. These are all black and white movies.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the exposure, and I agree with you with the length. Including trailers, you're there for 3 hours or more. But other than that, it really surprised me how enjoyable it is. How much I'm really looking forward to the conclusion next year. I'm just mildly annoyed by the part one thing that was not in the trailers, not in the posters. We've seen that with Mission Impossible recently. We saw that with Into the Spider-Verse or Beyond the Spider-Verse. We saw that with Dune, my favorite movie of last year and probably this year. When that came out, we didn't know it was Dune Part 1, It's like the
Yeah.
studios
I
are
knew
scared.
about it a while ago, and I don't
Really?
remember. But
Interesting.
there is no one else, I think, that I have talked to that heard about it. I think they were really, really keeping it under wraps. Like they wanted people to go to this movie and
Yeah,
not be
yeah.
bothered by
So I
one
won't.
or two.
How do you think, are they going to title it? Like, is these two movies together? Is it going to be called Wicked, and then the second one Wicked Part Two, without the
I
Part
bet
One and the
that's what
first
they
one?
do. I bet that's what they
I
do.
guess that's how a sequel could be done anyway. Like, John Wick, John Wick 2. So, yeah, okay. Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Is only about 2.5 hours. So the
That's the
stage
other
play
thing.
as long as the as part one. So they did add a bunch of stuff in. And it's been a while since I've seen the play, so I couldn't remember everything exactly that they
Yeah.
added. It did feel like there was a lot more added. And like I said, except for maybe a half an hour, I didn't feel like it was fluff. It was really, really well done. People should see this movie.
Yeah, and I guess one other thing just to go through is, did any of the other characters stand out to you? Say, um, Jeff Goldblum, Bowen Yang. I didn't recognize her sister, the girl that is in the wheelchair. Marissa Bode, I think is her name.
Yeah,
I didn't.
I didn't recognize her. I would have liked a little bit more Bowen Yang if they had more of him. I thought Jeff Goldblum was a good choice for the Wizard of Oz because he's
Perfect.
sufficiently slimy enough for that.
Yep,
Peter Dinklage was the Dr. Dillamon's voice, and I
that's
thought that was
right.
a good voice. I
Good
really like
choice.
Jonathan Bailey as Prince Fiero, who's a very sexy man. I'm not familiar with him. I think he's from like Bridgerton or something, some show,
Yes,
but I thought he was really cute.
he was extremely well looking. Yeah, and one thing that stood out to me was while watching was the what is the dynamics of this school because so the story starts with Elphaba going to drop off her sister, and then she also attends or starts to attend. And then that man comes in and he looks like he's like 40, but there's like kids in this class or younger people. I guess it's just part of the
No,
world.
I don't think you can think too much about it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, what? He has like gray in his beard like I do. I'm like, what? And then her sister looks like she's maybe 17 or something. So,
It's like a college. So I guess, when I went to
yep.
school, when I went to law school, there were people who were older who were going back to school. So maybe it's the same kind of thing. People who were older wanted to go back and learn magic.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It just what the age range without it being explained was a little confusing, but that's not a big deal. Who cares?
I just text from Mitch that said answer the chat, and I don't know
Yeah,
where that is.
if you click on the right side, it should say chat. He's there. I've answered him. He's in there
Okay.
as the word the.
All right.
Could you find
I
it?
um you said where is it?
It should be to the right of your face, to the very far right. You should
Oh, I
see,
see it.
yeah, a couple icons. So I would definitely recommend it. It sounds like you are too.
Someone is being mean about me. Do you see this? Here's the chat. What the fuck is going on in here? Where's Mitch? Who is this lady? I didn't approve this. Oops.
That was me who said oops. He can deal
And
with
then
it.
someone, same person says, "Am I a sexy man? Love you guys." Yeah, you are sexy.
So I want to briefly mention Gladiator 2, which is something I saw as well. Actually, I guess a couple of weeks ago now. I did get to see it a little early with some coworkers of mine before it came out. We did a employee screening. So this was probably a pretty highly anticipated movie for me. It's directed again by Ridley Scott, 24 years after the original Gladiator, which won Best Picture. It got Russell Crowe his first Oscar. Yes, it was his first. I think his second one was A Beautiful Mind, maybe. Stars Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal. Connie Nielsen returns in the same role as last time. Joseph Quinn, who we just saw in Quiet Place Part 1, if you saw that.
I did.
He and Fred Helkinger play the dual emperors in the movie of Rome. And the rest of it, people know Gladiator. Anyone listening, you know the movie. The movie, I want to just kind of briefly talk about it. There's not too much to say, and maybe once Mitch gets to it, he and I can talk about it again. And go in depth, but I would give this movie a positive review, but just barely positive. The movie is in the same vein as The Force Awakens, Jurassic World, in that we're kind of just retelling the same story over again with a little lesser of effect. I think Denzel Washington is by far the standout in this movie, the most interesting character. He is in everybody's ear, and you can tell right off the grip that he is scheming, and that there's maybe more to his character. The familial relationships between the main character, played by Paul Mescal, Lucius, I think is his name. Yeah, Lucius. They kind of are dodgy about it in the trailer, so I don't want to give it away on who and what his relation to anyone from the first movie or the current movie is. But it feels a little rushed, and I hate to say this. This kills me to say, but I'm afraid Paul Mescal might not have been the right pick for this. And he might not be like movie star level, like a Russell Crowe, Tom Cruise, Will Smith type guy. And the reason it hurts me so much to say this is he has been fantastic in movies like After Sun, Normal People, The Lost Daughter, Foe from earlier this year with Saoirse Ronan. Carmen was another movie he did. Have you seen any of those movies I just mentioned?
Haven't actually.
So those are all movies kind of on the indie circuit. And All of Us Strangers, did you see that? Have you heard of that one?
No,
It was
I have
also a
heard
big, yeah, it was a big awards contender last year.
it
So
was very good.
it is. It is. Pretty much all those I've mentioned are good. Foe isn't as well loved, but it is kind of interesting. After Sun is fantastic and devastating. I love The Lost Daughter. It's so good. So I was so excited to hear that he was getting cast in this. And he's good. He looks amazing. He's extremely well built. But he just can't carry the screen the same way as a Russell Crowe could.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that's the writing. He doesn't get the best character arc throughout the movie. His character is basically just, I'm filled with rage, I'm mad, I'm gonna say what happens in the first scene of the movie. The opening scene, this small town is being invaded by Rome. We see him and his current wife, and the movie opens, he walks up to this woman and says, "My wife, kiss me before we go into battle," and then she immediately gets killed by an arrow. So, and that's all the characterization we get for him and his wife's relationship. So the rest of the movie hinges on him being so mad they killed his wife, which we've seen so many revenge movies where men's wife or kid get killed, right? Just like in the original, Russell Crowe's wife and kid get burned, and that drives him for the rest of the movie. But in the first one, we get a lot more time of Russell Crowe spent with his wife and kid. And in this case, they could have given us more flashback, but I don't think we ever see the wife ever again. And I think that's because we're squeezing in Denzel Washington, we're squeezing in the twins as emperors, and then the movie's basically like, all right, we got to figure out how we get Paul Mescal as a gladiator, and that's the first. And this movie's also 2.5 hours, so yeah, Gladiator 2 is worth seeing. I would recommend anyone who even slightly likes the original to definitely see it. But it'll probably go down in the history books as like an okay sequel. It's not a Godfather 2 compared to Godfather, But it could have been much, much worse. It just didn't take any risks. There's really no risk here.
Sure.
Connie Nielsen looks incredible. She looks like she hasn't aged at all, because I went back and rewatched it.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh my God, I just couldn't believe it. She's like age where she could be a grandmother, and she looks just like she did in the first movie 24 years ago. So, good on her. I'm glad she was brought back. A lot of times, let's say Top Gun Maverick, the Kelly McGinnis who was in Top Gun. Yeah, Kelly McGillis, right?
McGillis, yes. Uh-huh.
So remember, she infamously or whatever didn't get asked back. A lot of speculation and people chattering online was because she's not as good looking as she once was. So it's nice that they did bring Connie Nielsen back and kept her character instead of just saying, "Oh, yeah, she went to another planet or something."
Yeah, and Top Gun Maverick, Jennifer Connelly, his love interest, and I'm like, she's like 20 years younger than him. Whatever.
Yeah. And I'm fine with age gaps in movies for romances. Even if it's the other way around, like if it's a younger guy. I mean, we have the Nicole Kidman movie Pretty Baby coming out this fall.
I'm totally down with any movie where an older lady is getting it on with a younger guy. I'll go see that.
Yeah, me too. A lot of times they're fascinating. It's fun to see that swapped and the dynamic be a little different. We've had a few of those, and there was like a really goofy Netflix.
And Hathaway one on
yes,
Prime,
that's
which
it.
was kind of okay. And then there
Yeah.
was another one. There was in the Nicole Kidman one, another Nicole Kidman one with Zac Efron that was
Yes.
on Netflix. That movie was extremely silly, but I do like Zac Efron a lot, so I gave
Yeah.
it a little bit of a pass.
Yeah. So credit to Ridley Scott or whoever had the decision to bring her back, keep her in. She is an active character in this. She's not just like a worried wife. She has narrative importance to move the story forward. So that was good to see. Some of this, the last thing I want to say is some of the CGI was pretty bad. A lot of like water effects, and after rewatching the original, it just made me long for, be a little nostalgic for back in 2000 or 99 when they made the first movie. They didn't have the option to use all this CGI. There's a lot of CGI animals in the new one, and they look CGI. I did see it in IMAX, and I was sitting pretty close, so it was easy to tell. But yeah, overall, Gladiator 2, still a good movie, still well acted, still worth seeing, even in a theater. It just doesn't reach the same heights as the original.
Seems like kind of stupid fun, which I'm always down with.
Yeah, yeah. So I want you to tell me about the movie and movies you saw that you saw recently that you want to talk about.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of reading. When it gets where there's not a lot of sunlight, I like to like curl up with a book. And so a book I read recently was called Horror Movie, and I bought it based on the cover because it looks like an old VHS tape. The
Sure.
book, and it's called Trembly. The book itself wasn't great, but at the end, it had kind of an interesting thing. The author put some of his favorite horror movies. So I watched two of them. One was called I Am a Ghost. I'll talk about kind of both together because since these are older movies, it was
What
called
year are these?
I Am a Ghost is a 2014 movie or 2012 movie, and but I guess it was released in 2014. And then the second movie was Lucky. There's a few movies named Lucky. This is a horror movie from 2020. So I Am a Ghost
Wow.
had a $10,000 budget.
Okay, I was looking at it. Yeah, it looks like it was made for.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
main actress is wearing the worst wig of all time, which always throws me. Like anything weird fashion or weird hair, like always throws me. So that was like a complaint that I had. It had a nice kind of spooky element to it, but it really ended up not being that great, honestly. It's on Tubi if anyone wants to catch up with it.
Okay.
Is extremely short. It's like an hour and 15
Yeah.
minutes. I felt like they could have ended it better, which is a complaint I have a lot about a lot of horror movies, but it was just interesting seeing like a really really low budget movie and like what they did with it. So that was that movie. The second one was Lucky, which was 2020, which was a better movie, and it yeah, I think it won some awards.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like it. Well, at least premiered at South by Southwest. I don't know. Yeah, I can't see just yet.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it. But in it, I mean, even the poster looks better. Like it looks a little higher production quality.
And this is another short movie, and I was really, really getting into it. It had this very, very interesting plot, almost sort of like of a Groundhog Day type plot, where a mysterious man who's trying to murder the main
So,
character comes every night. And she has this boyfriend, and he says something that's like in the beginning that's like very interesting and like sparked my attention. And I was like, okay, I am like loving this movie. And then it just sort of, I don't know, petered off. Like it really
mm,
didn't have the ending that I thought it deserved. In my mind, I wrote another ending, but it really was well done, like really well filmed. It's on AMC Plus, and I think it was where Shudder will say, "Hey, this is a Shudder original."
yep.
They took this movie and called it a Shudder original. The acting is good. It has some interesting scenes, a very spooky elements to it. So I would recommend it. Like if you're just looking for like a really quick horror movie,
Yeah, it's
but
also under an hour and a half. It looks like.
yeah, it is. And but don't be disappointed be disappointed by the response or by the end. I was, but I think it's still worth a watch. It has like a humongous score on Rotten Tomatoes, like 93. It is not a
Wow.
3% movie. I think maybe other people will appreciate the ending. Maybe I'm just not that smart.
Did you know what? It looks familiar to me. A 2022 movie that you might have seen. Did you see Watcher with Micah Monroe, the woman from It Follows?
I don't think I saw that movie. Should
It's a
I? Of
whole. I would recommend it. Yeah, if you like this type of movie, it's a very similar story. It's Micah Monroe, right, from It
course I
Follows.
do. Yeah, and long legs.
Yes, and long legs now. Yeah. So, and it gives this movie you're talking about feels similar in that this is kind of like also a suburban woman. She's with her husband on a business trip in another country, and she is being stalked and terrorized by someone else, and she's not really getting help from the people around her. Which it sounds like this is similar to the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
And
it
then
is.
it unfolds from there. It's also an hour and a half. It's really good. So
I'm gonna watch it and compare because,
yeah, I'd
like,
be curious.
movie had me really intrigued initially with a really really cool. I always love it when there's something where someone has a line that almost seems like a throwaway line and it just brings you into the intrigue, and that's how it
Mm,
started, and I didn't feel like it lived up to that feeling that I
okay.
had. Like had like the tingles down my spine, which I always try to get, and then it just never came back to it. So those were two movies that I came back to and kind of discovered through this book, which I also thought how we come across movies in different ways can also be very interesting.
I think that's really cool because Mitch, my normal podcast host, longtime listeners might remember this. He last year read a book about World War II, and it had a bunch of movie recommendations in it, and he has since gone through those. So I think that's a really cool way to discover other movies because I love this that like I thought when you said these were older movies that these would be like 90s, early 2000s, but no, these are recent, and I try and see as much as I possibly can, and I feel like I at least have an awareness. And I hadn't heard of either of these, and that's one of the things I love about movies is you can. There's always movies that I will have not heard of, even though it's all I think about. you know,
No, it's true. It's so true. There's so many movies out there. It's almost like
thousands and
an
thousands.
infinite number of movies.
Yeah, and you think like from a critic standpoint, say Roger Ebert, those guys back in those days, like they technically could review almost every movie with a budget, but now you can't. It's impossible. And I have sympathy for like TV writers because there's now so much good television that it's impossible to watch it all.
Well, I know. I was even thinking about that just in with movies as well. Like you go on Prime or Netflix and you're like, "Oh my God, what are these movies?" I haven't even heard of them. It's
Yep,
crazy. And
yep.
all these people putting this hard work into it, and then a lot of these movies don't get touched. So it's kind of sad in a way.
It is. It is. It really is. And I think, that's partially a reason that I listen to a lot of podcasts. Why we do a podcast like this is so you can get recommendations from someone who saw it. And because, a lot of times if you take a chance on something, it's often terrible, or
That's
can be. So, and that's kind of the thing like with theaters, right? If it gets to a theater, you feel like, okay, it had to cross a few barriers to get here, right? Just like if you were
and
like a liter.
Right, exactly. And I've been burned so many times on shitty horror movies because I would probably go see every horror movie that is at the theater. And so
Same.
I saw Afraid this year, and I saw
Ugh,
oh my swim that swimming pool, haunted
ugh.
swimming pool. I can't even remember the name of it.
Night Swim.
Burned, yeah, Night Swim. I've been burned a ton of times on movies like that.
And same with, and I know Mitch will too, like, because he will definitely go peruse the streaming Shutters, Tubi, and he'll watch just some terrible. Front Room, which you and I saw together. The more we get away from that, the worse I think about that movie was. And it's like, yeah, that's A24. It was in a theater. Still, that was just bad.
Right. Yeah, that movie sucked. That movie sucked.
It was
That's why
so
you
bad.
the service for me because you guys will watch some of those movies.
Right.
I don't know that I would have watched before the show. We chatted for a minute. I don't know that I would have watched Oddity without the recommendation from Mitch.
Yeah.
Think it would have been lost to me. And I loved that movie so much.
It's
I
so
watched
cool.
and then watched it like a week later because I felt like I had missed so much, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. The opening scene for Oddity is really one where when you're first watching it, you're just taking it face value. But then when you learn more about it, going back, I bet it was really rewarding to rewatch that scene and now with the knowledge you now have. Yeah, that's a cool, really cool movie. And that's Oddity. Well, yeah. So, do you have any other things you want to say about Lucky or I Am a Ghost?
I think that's it.
Okay, okay. I want to quickly just mention I saw the movie Maria, the third movie in the Pablo Larraín trilogy that he was doing on important and impactful women. He did Jackie about Jackie Onassis with Natalie Portman back in I don't know 2019, 2018. Then he did Spencer with Kristen Stewart about Princess
Princess Diana.
Diana, thank you. Yeah, her maiden name was Spencer, right? Which I enjoyed both of those a good bit. Spencer, I think I really loved Spencer. I thought Stewart did a great job. And then this one is about Maria Callas. Maria Callas, I think her name is. Greek, world famous opera singer. You've heard her music in movies for sure. Like, there's no question about it. Everyone has heard her. The reason I went to see it is because it will be on Netflix next week. The reason I went to see it was because there is a lot of buzz about Angelina Jolie getting nominated for an Oscar for the performance. And I didn't like the movie very much at all. I thought it was very pretentious and really hard to get through, disorganized. It jumps and zigzags through time. The dialogue is just really corny and goofy. This is working well for some critics, and people are tripping over themselves to tell people about this. But I did find some others like me that weren't that impressed with it. It does look incredible. The cinematography in her apartment and her outfits and stuff are just beautiful. It makes you want to stroll through Paris in fall because like just some of the shots are incredible. But I would say it's not worth a watch or a Netflix watch once it hits. But we have some awesome movies coming up, and Florence, I would love to know if any of these are on your radar that you plan to see. So I think coming this weekend near me, at least in Atlanta, I will have the ability to see the movie Queer with Daniel Craig. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have.
Looking forward to that.
I hear there's a lot of Oscar buzz for his performance.
Yep. And then Amy Adams is in a new movie called Night Bitch that comes out this weekend.
That one is not on my radar.
Yeah, so it did well on the festival run. It's her, this is in the trailer. It's her as a suburban mom dealing with being a mom, and at night she turns into a bitch, a female dog, and not in like a vampire way, but the trailer shows her like walking around with her belly out and her hair all messed up. Like it's very unglamorous, and it looks like a cool movie and it's a comedy with her taking a risk. So that's this weekend. Then you also have Interstellar is coming out to limited IMAXs this weekend for its 10-year anniversary. I'm going to try and see that Friday night. And then the millennial movie Y2K.
Can I embarrassingly tell you how excited I am for that movie?
I'm pretty excited too. Kyle Mooney, I think, is directing it from SNL.
I saw a preview for it, oh, maybe about a month ago.
Not in front
And
of Wicked?
no,
Okay.
it was something, you know what? It was when I saw Smile 2.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't wait for it. It looks good. Of course, I was alive, and I don't know, in my teens or maybe I can't remember. I was somewhere high schoolish age when Y2K happened, so they're gonna hit me with the nostalgia, and I bet I'm hoping to enjoy it. I really am.
me too. So I said to, because for Wicked, my 17-year-old daughter went with me, and I said, Y2K is coming out this weekend. And she's like, what's Y2K?
Yep.
Forget it. I'll just show you the movie. It'll be
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. Just watch the movie. Also coming out this weekend is a horror movie called Werewolves. Have you heard of that? It has a
No.
poster of a
Is the
werewolf.
one or no?
Is it Universal? It's got Frank Grillo in it. He's like the action. He's like the new Bruce Willis. He's like the new Bruce Willis. He does
Sure.
a lot of crappy, but it is coming to theaters.
I'm thinking of a different movie. I think the movie I'm thinking of is maybe coming out in January, and it might just be called Werewolf. It's the second movie, or I don't even know if it'd be considered second, but by the same makers of The Invisible Man are doing Werewolf, like in the Universal Monster universe.
Interesting. I love The Invisible Man. The one
Yes, me
with
too.
what's her name?
Elizabeth.
Shue. No, Olsen.
No,
No.
no.
God. Yeah, but
My God, what's her name?
so then also coming out is a movie called The Order. Again, this is another one coming to theaters near me. This one has Jude Law in it and Nicholas Hoult and Mark Maron and Ty Sheridan. And it's about some bank robbers fighting against the FBI. And then also coming out this weekend to theaters is a movie called The Return, which has a decent cast as well. So I am just like with Ray Fiennes and Juliette Binoche is coming out this weekend. So I literally
Oh,
just
okay.
listed 7 movies. Oh, and there's one more. Oh my god, one more. The movie Flow, which is an animated movie about a cat. Have you seen the trailer for it? It looks really cool and
Now,
clever.
is it Flo like my nickname, or is it Flo like Flo?
It's FLOW, yeah.
Okay.
It just looks like it might be kind of cool and interesting, and maybe it wants a run at best animated feature. It's like from Latvia or Lithuania. I don't think there's any dialogue. It's about an animated cat. It has great reviews. So yeah, so there's like a shit ton of movies, and I am going to try my best to see every single one of those movies I just listed. Yeah, I'm working. Oh, and I'm working Cinema Score on Friday for Y2K, so I will definitely be seeing that. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. You'll have to,
Yeah.
if you will, send me a text and let me know how it turned out.
I will, and I actually was going to tell
I've
you
already seen it by then because I'm probably going to see it Friday.
Thursday night. Oh yeah,
Elizabeth Moss was the actress from it.
thank you. I think I told the podcast, but we changed our ballots. We eliminated the DVD question, so now it's just 4 questions: grade, age, gender, and why'd you come to see it, to kind of streamline and make it smoother. So that was
Better
cool.
ballot, I think.
Definitely, definitely. It was well needed changes. So yeah, lots of movie stuff coming. So I guess we can. Is there any other movies that you are anticipating, or anything movie related coming
Well,
up?
just to mention this, a movie that I caught up on, and I won't talk about it in detail because
Go
you
for
guys
it.
did a lot of it on the show. But My Old Ass is on Prime, and wow, is that movie is just the best. Like I sobbed, I like ugly cried for a
Did you
while.
watch it with your daughter or daughters? I could see you enjoying that
No,
with one
I
of them.
watched it by myself, and I knew exactly where it was going, and I still sobbed. And the next day, I tried to tell my sister-in-law a little bit about it, and I started crying, telling her about the movie. So
I
I
love that. That's a great
that's
story.
not a recommendation, but I like highly recommend that movie, and it's a great time to catch up on it. And I think it's just a smidge shorter than an hour and a half.
Yeah, yep. I think it was like an hour and 32 minutes or something like that. An hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, both Mitch and I enjoyed it. And I could definitely see you getting a little more out of it, being a mom, being a woman. Did you see, but in that similar vein, did you see his 3 daughters?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
I would think you might. Yeah, I think speaking of Elizabeth Olsen, it's also really good. That one's more of a downer, because actually, speaking of Mitch, it's a parent is getting on an age and they come together and they're not close on a day-to-day basis, but they have to work together to figure this shit out. So, but yeah, just because of who you are, I think you might get something out of it. I think I asked you this off the air, but are you looking forward to Nosferatu?
Optimistic. I'm hoping it will be a good movie.
Have you seen the trailer?
Have, and I'm not sure, even
Okay.
from the trailer. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. And it's one of those things, and maybe I still have PTSD from Salem's Lot this year.
Yeah, I heard that was bad.
But, so there can be vampire movies that are amazing, or they just suck. Like, not
Yeah.
suck like a vampire suck, but just are terrible. And one of the best vampire movies I've seen recently was Abigail. And
Yeah.
so that's a movie, if people haven't caught up with it, it's on Peacock. It might be one of my favorite movies of the year. Like, I
Cool.
love that movie. And I thought that my only complaint about it, which really isn't a complaint about the movie, was that they showed too much in the trailer.
Thank you.
So, yeah, if they would have not given it all away, it would have unfolded like a masterpiece. Like it would have been so fucking fun. And then
Yeah.
it's fun. It was amazing. I loved it. And all the actors were great. And we got to see Agnes Cloud in his last movie role, and the other actors were outstanding. But just why give away the big reveal of the movie?
It would have been such a nice reveal. Yeah, I'm really excited for Nosferatu just for a couple reasons. Speaking of vampire movies, this isn't a vampire movie, but it's similar. That new Crow remake was terrible. Did you see it?
No. After I heard you guys talk about it, I was like, screw that. I'm not going to see that.
Just watch the original, and whereas this is the same guy that did The Lighthouse, and he, kind of broke out with the movie The Witch. He's known for doing obsessive things for details. Like, for example, a story I remember around The Witch, he researched to find out what type of housing wood roof that the house would have in The Witch in the 1970s Salem time during the witch trials, and got that specific roof made for that movie. And that was just one example of the details he goes to. So I'm really looking forward to it because of his crazy details. It stars Lily Rose Depp, who is someone who like gives me a little pause because she's not bad, but I haven't loved anything she's been in. Voyagers, The King, Tusk, Yoga Hosers. I've seen all of those, and none of those were all that great. The Wolf, she did, that was okay. Have you seen her in anything? Johnny
No.
Depp's daughter.
Yeah, no, I've only really seen her modeling, to tell you the truth. She was in that TV show with
The
The Week,
Idol.
which was
Yeah.
everyone hated and no one saw it. So I really haven't seen any of her acting. I can't think of any acting I've seen her.
Yeah, I never got to The Idol. I meant to because I heard it it was pretty explicit, and I like explicit content. So I meant to get to it, but I never did. But then the movie also has Nicholas Hoult and Bill Skarsgård, both strong and fun actors. So that's coming in a couple weeks. Really looking forward to that one. So, okay, cool. Well, I think we can then wrap up. I want to just say thank you again, Florence, for stepping in. I just so much appreciate it. Could not have done this without you. So, yeah, thanks a lot. And I'm sure we'll talk soon. And maybe we can have you back on to do Nosferatu.
Sure, that would be great. Whenever you guys need, let me know.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I will then hit the outro, and then we can call it a night. Right at an hour. I think it's 56 minutes, so that's just perfect. Couldn't have worked out better. Mitch, I miss you. Can't wait for you to come back, man.
Same, Mitch. I'm a
Talk to you
poor
soon. No. You're a great substitute. I might have to kick Mitch off of his own podcast and have you just take over. Later, Mitch. See you, sucker. Awesome.